All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Tuesday, February 4th of 2025, and looking ahead here, we have a 7-game NBA main slate tonight, as well as a 10-game NHL slate. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel on our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim team. Just can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then we do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So you can tune in any one of those days, get your questions answered. All right. With that said, let's get SaberSim up. Reminder on the show schedule, there will be no show Friday, Saturday, or Monday. So our last office hour show of the week will be on Thursday, and then we will be picking it back up on Tuesday. So just a small note for you guys there. But as far as questions go, you know what? Let's get SaberSim up. Let's get a build off and running while we read off the first question. That way we have something to work with after it's done. So first question, when looking at the metrics, does using, for example, 0.5555 maybe too much? Is it better to have it at 0.55 or 0.5 for the builder to be more accurate using the decimal numbers? Thanks. Okay, so it's just referring to like, I'm setting a filter, I'm setting a rule. How many decimal points should I go? So in case you guys never seen this, if you download the player projections and then you bring this over, right? You could come in here and you could like see there are, going to be multiple items here with that use, multiple decimal places. I don't know if these actually go further. No, they don't. The projection stops at 2 decimal points. Some of these other ones, Justin Owen has like multiple decimals, value, multiple decimals. You don't need to like worry about being too hyper specific here. I would just go 2 decimal places and I think you're fine. So anytime, you're in the app, get rid of this, and, you're setting like some rule, aggregate, projection, ownership, geo mean, no more than X. I think 2 decimal places is fine. I think 1 decimal place can be fine. So no need to go like more than 2, I would say. All right. Next question. Andrew, any thoughts on bankroll management for smaller players, $5 to $6 a night? Yeah, actually, what I would like really recommend is if you can, I would play on FanDuel over DraftKings. And the reason for that is FanDuel has a 5-cent 150 max contest. So even if you don't max it out, right? We talk about this like a lot. You're still going to be able to get more lineups down. And then you could couple that with a couple of like their single entries. So for instance, let's say that, I have $5, right? Well, I can go, $1 gets me 20 lineups. So then let's say I do 80 lineups in the 150 max, and then I play the $1 single entry, right? I think they even have like a $1 3 max. Maybe you put 1 in the $1. Try and go wherever you're going to get like the best bang for your buck. And by bang for your buck, I mean the most lineups for the amount of money you're wagering. DraftKings has 10 cent is like the smallest they go. Well, FanDuel goes 5 cent, right? So if you can play on FanDuel, you're going to get twice the number of lineups for the same amount of money. So that's what I would recommend. In those 5 cent 150 max contests, I think they pay more to first too, right? They usually pay like a couple $100, and the 10 cent 20 maxes on DK pay like $10, $30, $50 maybe, but the 5 cent 150 max definitely pays more to first because it's just ends up being a bigger contest. So it's just a good contest to play. So that would definitely be my recommendation. All right, next question. I understand the importance of having a good / positive sim ROI for slate reviews, but what exactly is it measuring? Does actual player performance contribute to it at all? Okay, so good question. 2 questions here. I'm going to answer the second one first. Does actual player performance contribute to post-contest sims? The answer is no. The contest sims are using the pre-slate projections, or rather the projections before the game started. So I don't want to give the impression that like, hey, we're using the projections from 1 minute before lock. We're using the projections per game 1 minute before lock, right? But like, for instance, for the last game of the night, the Pacers and the Trailblazers, if there are projection updates between lock and game start, that's what ends up getting used in the post-contest sim. So post-contest sims are using pre-game projections for every game on the slate, and actual player performance is not included in that, which is what you want, right? And the first part of the question was, what exactly is sim ROI measuring? Okay, good question. So I find this one easier to do on like a Word doc. I don't know why, but just makes more sense writing this in like really big letters. So sim ROI is taking the money the lineup won, and then it's dividing it by the total entry fees. Okay. So this is what sim ROI is measuring. So a good example of this, right, is take a $1 single entry contest, right? When we run the contest sims in the post, we're running it 100,000 times, right? So if you have a $1, so i.e. $1 single entry, and then in the post contest sim, that means that you're going to have, if we're running it 100,000 times, so run sim 100K times, that means that we have 100,000 in entry fees. That's in like the denominator, right? It's in the lower section. The upper section is how much money the lineup won across all the sims. So we're adding that up. So every single sim, we're putting it into that bucket, Well, let's say the lineup ends up winning $110,000. Okay. Well, what this ends up being is that, hey, this lineup won $10,000 more than it spent in entry fees. That ends up leading to a positive ROI, to be like positive 10%, right? Now, inversely, right, let's say that we add up all the entry fees or all the winnings, and the winnings are actually below the entry fees, right? This lineup won $90,000, but it spent $100,000 in entry fees. This would be a negative ROI lineup. So when people say like, hey, why do negative ROI lineups win? Whatever the case may be, it's not that they never win. They're going to have cashing rates. They're going to have win rates. It's just that at the end of the, sample that we take, this lineup ended up losing more than it won, even though it won the contest sometimes. So that's what's happening here. That is what ROI is measuring. So what we're trying to do, right, is we're trying to get a sense of like, hey, do your lineups win over the long run? And then the longer you play DFS, the more likely you are to continue to win. Okay. We don't want you to like win once and then be a negative ROI player. And then, over time, right, law of large numbers, you're going to move closer to the mean. And then you end up losing more over time. Right. So, I know I mentioned like the law of large numbers. Maybe somebody's like, what is that? Right. So, let's say I have a coin, right? And it's a quarter, right? Heads or tails, 50-50. Well, if I do the experiment 10 times, I'm not going to get 5 and 5 every time. I might get 6 and 4, I might get 7 and 3, 8 and 2, whatever it may be, right? But if I do that experiment 1,000 times, 10,000 times, 100,000 times, we're going to move closer and closer to the results being 50-50. So over time, you're going to move closer to your mathematical probability of winning. So if you are a positive ROI player, well, the great news is the longer you play, the more likely you are to win. And then if you're negative ROI, well, you might hit early, but over time, you're going to be giving more of that money back. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. All right. Hope that example made sense. Next question. I have a pro subscription. I adjust player projections based on my research by 1 to 3 points for certain players. Then I run late swap and adjust again and rebuild late swap. Does this help or hurt my lineups? Okay, so it sounds like what's happening is that pre-slate, you're adjusting the projections, right? You're coming in here, high value adjustments based on your research, and then you open up your late swap and the adjustments are gone. You're readjusting and then you're building your late swap. You can skip a step here. So first off, I would say, I would continue to maintain your adjustments. I think that's a good idea, right? Especially if you're doing research, right? I don't know what kind of research you're doing, but if you feel like your research is solid and maybe you track that over time, on a spreadsheet, like, hey, how often am I right? How often am I wrong? Am I, I'm grading myself and I'm right, 7 out of 10 times. Like, hey, you're probably adding value if, you're right 70% of the time. So I would keep doing that, right? And then in late swap, where's a good example? We could probably see this in the late swap demo just because the late swap isn't active. So in our SaberSim tutorials, we have like a late swap demo. And let's just pull this up. And I'll show you where you guys can change this. Okay, so this is what late swap looks like, right? You click the green late swap icon, you get this pop-up. Notice this option here in the bottom left where it says settings, it says default. What this means is that we are going to give you a brand new build, okay? We're going to give you fresh build, no filters, no rules. Any adjustments you made are going to be gone, okay? So that is the equivalent of coming into SaberSim and then just clicking this plus icon, right? It's going to give you a brand new build. Any adjustments to projections I made are going to be gone, etc. Here. You have an option in this window to click this drop down. And what this drop down will have are the names of any builds that you have open. And it will allow you to copy over any adjustments that you've made in those builds to your late swap build. So that is effectively you're cloning this build into a late swap, right? So if I come in here, I right click on a build name, I have this clone option. Well, what this will do is it will carry over any adjustments that I've made into a new build, but it'll be a pre-slate build, right? This late swap toggle in the bottom left effectively allows you to do the same, but transfer your adjustments from a pre-build to a late swap build. So what I would recommend here is any adjustments you've made, if you've made them in, say, build 1, which is like the default name for a build, I would just come into this drop down, click it, select build 1, your adjustments will get carried over, and then late swap from there. So that's going to be my advice there. I definitely think that you should utilize that, and it should save you a bunch of time rather than opening up a new one and then going and, readjusting everything you've already adjusted, right? So just going to save you time. Whew, all right. Good stuff there. Look in here. Gotta thanks. You're welcome. Looks like we're caught up in the YouTube chat, caught up in office hours. Why don't we do a build demo here? So I'm just gonna run with this build that we started. So all I did here, right, was I opened up a build. I made 2 adjustments to projections. And I'll wait for this new build to pop up. Made 2 adjustments to projections and then kicked this build off, right? And the only other thing I did was I built 500 lineups instead of the max. I would always build the max your plan allows, but just did that to save some time. So I'm going to go create a contest sim real quick. This opportunity to come in and upload your entry file for the day. And then I'll go back to the build where we built lineups already. And then in this build, I keep seeing this bug, and I'm going to report it. Anytime you guys see something weird, if you guys ever want to report it, that helps us out a bunch. So I'm noticing if you build lineups first, then go create a manual contest sim, then go back to the build. The run contest sim button is grayed out and doesn't turn green until you do a hard refresh, right? Like this shouldn't happen. So you guys let us know. That sends data to our team, and then we could take it from there and figure it out, right? So I'm just going to do what I said is the workaround. All right, we got this build loading back up. Contest sim button is green. We're going to click that, run that. I'm going to move some columns around in the meantime. Exposure. Okay, this looks good. All right, so contest sim is finishing. If you've uploaded an entries file, you don't have to do anything at this point. I'm going to go switch, though, to my manual contest sim, and then I'm going to create an aggregate metric for my manual contest sim. And I did this build for the $4.20 max, right? So we got 20 lineups here. We got a pool of 500. This is all good to go. Something that I've talked about recently, which I'll demo here, is just setting up a filter for ROI greater than 0. So show lineups with ROI greater than 0. And that'll just make sure if you have multiple contests, you're using min uniques, you're using unique rank, that you never venture too far into your pool to play lineups here. So it's moved 168 lineups to the trash. That's good. It's just like a safeguard. And then now I can feel comfortable about start bumping my min uniques, pretty high. And no, I'm never going to, the min uniques isn't going to cause me to play a negative ROI lineup. So what I do here is note my average projection, ROI aggregate metrics, and then just start increasing this, right? Increasing my min uniques, trying to get some diversification in my lineups. So I've gone from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Here I'm barely down, like maybe a 1.5 of projection and about 20% ROI, and I've gone from 1 unique to 4, right? So we're getting a lot of diversification here. 4 to 5, we go a little bit further. I think here's like a good spot to like stop and analyze, right? Like we see a little bit of a jump with dropping projection, dropping ROI. How do we feel about our leverages, right? And our exposures. And I can come in here and I can look at them, right? And like, hey, how are we looking? I'm looking at these two columns, exposure, leverage, right? So pretty flat to a lot of players, taking a couple stands. Grady Dick, Jacob Podol, Bam Adebayo, stand out to me here. So this is a good opportunity, right, to go a little bit further. Like, okay, why are we seeing, these Toronto guys? Then you can go and you can filter for them. I usually sort by projection. And then I come down here and I look. It's like, oh, okay, RJ Barrett's out. High salary player. If you guys are familiar with the team, high usage player. We're expecting there to be extra opportunities for guys like Podol, guys like Grady Dick, right? And, Grady Dick's salaries a little bit on the lower side. Podol's in like the 6K range. Okay, that kind of makes sense to me, right? The other name I saw, Bam Adebayo. It's like, hey, why are we seeing so much of him? And it doesn't look like anybody new is particularly out. He has really good value. I'm kind of surprised to be seeing him at like such a high value. This team looks normal, right? These are like the normal guys that they've been playing, and normal guys like coming off the bench. Looks like everyone's available. So I'm not 100% sure. This makes me like a little bit nervous, to be honest. And I think this is like a good opportunity to say like, hey, Bam's kind of our highest exposed, highest leverage player. He does have a lot of ownership, but I don't really know where the extra opportunities are coming from, because like what I'm always looking for is like, hey, why is this guy high value? Where is it coming from? It's usually coming from somebody being hurt. It could be from somebody being a bench player moving to like a starter, right? But we're like kind of not seeing that here, right? So I could do one of two things. Number one is I could increase uniques, further from like 5 to 6 and see what impact that has, right? That brings Bam down to like 50%. It's a lot better, but it has a huge effect on all the other players, right? And I've already kind of determined I'm good with all the other players' leverages, right? We were okay with the Toronto guys. It made sense. A lot of these other players are flat. What I would probably do in this case is just come in here and lower him specifically, right? So maybe I want to lower him to like 60% instead of 75, right? Gets his leverage closer to like 20. He's not the highest leverage player on my team anymore. Notice that one change, when I went from 5 to 6 uniques, my average projection went down to 267, but making that one single change maintains my higher average projection of 273. So I'm keeping 6 points in projection on average here, which is good. And I've lowered my risk to that one play. So here I've like matched pool. That's where I got the 60% from. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to match pool exposure. And I'm going to, maintain some positive leverage based on what the Sims want to do, but I'm not going to be so highly leveraged on this player that I don't feel super comfortable playing, because I don't really see like I don't see the backstory, right? That's what I'm always trying to do. Does this make sense? So at this point, I'd be happy with these lineups. I'd be ready to go save them and upload them into my contest. So hope that gives you guys some ideas here heading into the slate tonight. But aside from that, looks like we're all caught up in Discord and YouTube chat. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday for our next show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.